Hi and welcome to a different kind of video. As a frequent viewer of our channel, you would probably expect Yu-Gi-Oh content here, but I'm actually playing a lot of Path of Exile in my free time, so I figured I'll just try a build guide slash showcase. I don't really want to make this into a full guide, just a showcase of what I did, and if you are like somewhat familiar with the build, then you can probably figure out the rest. Or if you're like somewhat familiar with Path of Exile in general, I'll try to go over all the specifics of the build and all the specifics that I did. But yeah, let's jump right in. First of all, what is this build? We are playing Explody Totems, the flavor of the month build. So we are throwing traps, and then the traps explode, they spawn totems, and the totems explode. So first of all, why do we do this? We do this because of this note on the Crucible passive tree. Totems explode on death, dealing 600% of their life as physical damage. That's the baseline. The way we do this is we throw traps, the traps spawn totems if someone steps into them, and since we throw like 4, 5, 6, 7 traps every time, and every trap spawns multiple totems, we override our totem limit several times, which then means the overridden totems die. That counts as death, so that way they explode. So by overriding totems, we kill a lot of our own totems and make them explode. The second mechanic we are using here is poison proliferation via the Ascendancy, so Master Toxicist. When you kill a poison enemy during any flask effect, we always have flasks up. Nearby enemies are poisoned. Poisons you inflict during any flask effect have a 20% chance to do 100% more damage. That's cool. But the important thing is the nearby enemies are poisoned. That way we don't have to poison every single enemy, it just kinda proliferates by itself. Also, we are using Plague Bearer, which I will explain further when we go to the gem links, to just clear faster. I will append some mapping footage as well as some bossing footage later in the video, just so you can see how the build plays both in a map and against bosses. Now you might ask, we are dealing physical damage, how are we poisoning with that? The way we do this is we scale chance to poison, which there is a couple of ways to do this. The first and easiest way is Herald of Agony, which gives you baseline 20% chance to poison. We are using Divergent Herald of Agony to gain another 20% chance to poison. So we are at 40%, and then to scale Herald even further, you have two options. One option is you link it to an enhance. That way, with a level 3 enhance, you would get another 16% quality for another 16% chance to poison. Or the way I did it, I picked up a bow with Herald of Agony has 70% increased buff effect, so that way we also gain more chance to poison. To round it up, we have a couple of options. We can grab up to 20% chance to poison on an Elder or Hunter Quiver, which I didn't do here, I just went for resistances. We also have some masteries on the passive tree, like for example this one here is 15% chance to poison, and this one is another 10% chance, which I don't need, I'm already capped. Here's another 15%, as well as 20% here against cursed enemies. How we curse enemies is something we'll get into when we talk about the gear in general. First of all, I want to make one important point, which is poison chance on the bow doesn't work. You can get chance to poison on the bow, and the modifier is worded exactly the same like chance to poison on quiver, but chance to poison on bow is considered local. which means it only works for attacks with said bow, and an exploding totem, even though it's a node on the bow, is not considered to be inflicted by the bow, or not by an attack by the bow. That way, chance to poison on a bow doesn't work. I know it sounds kinda weird, but that's how it is, unfortunately. I will explain how to craft a bow like this later on. It's very deterministic, very easy. Yeah, I'll explain. So now the important part, where basically the build guides differ from each other, is how you pay for the traps. When we look here, Rejuvenating Totem costs 88 mana. That's a lot. And that's already with 24 reduced mana cost of skills. If we unequip this Quartz Flask, then we would be paying 154 mana, which... that's a tough order. Especially since we can, like, yeah, we can throw that fast. And as you see here, if I don't have the Flask up, then I'm out of mana in 3 throws. With the Flask up, it's much more reasonable. I'll just quickly wait until it's full. Now we can 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and now we slowly run out. But that's usually not needed because you will override your traps anyways. How do we pay for these traps? There are 2 ways. Or technically 3 ways. You can pay with them for you can pay with mana for them, but I wouldn't recommend that because then you can't really reserve a lot of auras, because you need so much mana to actually pay for this shit. Plus you need to actually invest into mana regen, which means you also need to run clarity, which cuts even more into your auras. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend. There are 2 ways basically. ES, so Eldritch Battery, or Life. You have 2 options of paying with them for life. You can just link Life Tap here instead of the Empower, which would then also mean that the bow is much easier to craft because you don't need the 2 level of socketed support gems. That's kind of pointless without the Empower. Or what you could also do is use Hands of the Slave Drivers, or Slave Driver's Hands. The reason why I didn't do that and instead went for Eldritch Battery is because 1, Slave Driver's Hands are fucking expensive, and 2, I want to run Asenaths Gentle Touch in my as my gloves and not Slave Driver's Hands. Plus, Slave Driver's Hands, as well as the Life Tap thingy, has the issue that it only makes the totems cost no mana. You still have to pay for your other spells if you want to cast anything else, which I do here. So Eldritch Battery solves all your mana issues. You have 2 options basically to get to Eldritch Battery. Since we're already pathing to Whispers of Doom, you can just spend 3 points and just path to Eldritch Battery, which is what I did before acquiring Devouring Diadem. So Diadem is not at all needed for the build. I just did it as like a luxury upgrade. But yeah, why Diadem? It's not only because we save 3 passive points. +1 to level of socketed gems. All our auras get +1 level. Cool. Second of all, it gives us ES. If we want to use Eldritch Battery, we need some ES somewhere. And Diadem just happens to give some. Okay, cool. Then, Feast of Flesh, whatever, doesn't matter. But 88% increased duration of ailments you inflict while focused actually works, because the poisons, for some reason, are considered to be inflicted by us. I don't know why, but that's how it works. And that's why increased duration of ailments you inflict while focused works. It's not exactly doubling the DPS, but it adds a lot. And then, last but not least, socketed gems have 25% increased reservation efficiency, which means that we can comfortably reserve a Herald of Agony alongside 3 50% auras, which is possible because I have the mana reservation efficiency already on the Diadem. Why do we want to use Asenaths and not Slave Driver's Hands? Asenaths has Temp Chains on hit and some Exploding that doesn't really matter, but it's cool. So we have Temp Chains on hit, which one turns out the Poison Mastery for 20% chance to poison against cursed enemies, and two, Temp Chains is a very good curse that we want to inflict anyways. And the great thing about Temp Chains is, even though Asenaths only afflicts a level 1 Temp Chains, if you look at the gem here, it basically has two important things that it does. One, cursed enemies have less action speed, and two, other effects on cursed enemies expire 40% slower. Now the great thing is, if you level Temp Chains, only the less action speed modifier gets increased. The curses, the other effects on cursed enemies expire 40% slower, does not scale with level. Which means, in terms of raw damage, a level 1 Temp Chains is just as good as a level 20 Temp Chains. Which is also why Asenaths is so great. Or Temp Chains on hit in general is so great. Now, before we go over the remaining gear, let's quickly talk about the bow craft. So, for the bow, what you want to do is you grab any bow with the passive tree that you want. It can be Hunter influenced, it doesn't have to be. If it is Hunter influenced, you can change up the craft a little bit. So, assuming it's not Hunter influenced, you then all spam for damage over time multiplier as the first step. If it is Hunter influenced, then you can spam for other modifiers as well. Hunter has some cool suffixes, you can just look that up yourself. Anyway, once you get the one suffix that you care about, you then regal the item, you annul whatever you regal. If you annul the damage over time multiplier, you scour and go again. It's not that hard to hit. So, the goal is a rare bow with just damage over time multiplier and nothing else. Once you got that, you can have up to 3 crafted modifiers, can't roll attack modifiers that will cost you 3 divine. You slam the item twice, like Exile slam. Or, if it's not yet Hunter influenced, you slam with 1 Hunter X and 1 normal X, which will guarantee +1 level of socketed gems and will guarantee increased chaos damage over time. I got unlucky and only hit tier 3, but that's how it is. Once you've done that, you have a rare item with multimod, can't roll attack, and the 3 stats that we care about. What you then do is you remove all crafted modifiers, you multimod again, that's another 2 divines. Then you craft +2 level of socketed support gems, which you get by unveiling Katarina weapons. And then you craft chaos damage over time multiplier, which you get by unveiling a lot of different stuff. You will get that craft eventually if you unveil items. That's the bow. Overall cost, as I said, 5 divine plus Hunter Exalt plus however many alls you need to hit. Now, the remaining gear, I already explained Diadem, I already explained Asenaths. The remaining gear is just there to cap our spell suppression, which is why we go with a rare armor and rare boots, each with spell suppression. We don't need to pick up that much because we're running a quartz flask. Then we have some rings with life and resistances and an amulet with life resistances. Some strength because the build is actually very strength stuff. We need to get to 159, I think. I think I'm exactly at cap. Yeah, we need 159 strength to be able to use a level 21 rejuvenating totem. So yeah, you gotta get some strength in at some point. And then a belt with some increased flask charges gain and flask effect and flask duration to be sure that all our flasks are up all the time. And then again, quiver with resistances, life. You can get a hunter quiver with dot multi and shit, and you can get dot multi on a lot of the gear, like on both rings, on the amulet, as well as on the quiver, you can get dot multi everywhere. Reason why I didn't do it is, one, I was poor as hell when I put the build together. I just had enough money for the bow and then pretty much nothing else. So these are still kinda the day one build. Day one of the build rings and quiver and stuff. And second reason is I don't need it. I never felt the need to upgrade anything in regards to damage. You will see in the map showcase this build does enough damage. So, what are the defenses of the build? If we have already established that it does more than enough damage. The defenses are 5.4k life, which is like decent. Around 30k evasion, which turns out to be roughly 80% evade chance. We are elemental ailment immune because we're running purity of elements. We are spell suppression capped with quartz flask and some spell suppression on gear. And we have a grand total of 27% physical damage taken as elemental between Gravicious Craft and Taste of Hate. We could get more Fist taken as ally if we were to go for Slave Driver's Hands, because then you can go with a rare helmet with Fist taken as elemental just rolled as well as in the implicit, and you can go for Lightning Coil, which would give you roundabout like 80% Fist taken as elemental, which is really nice. But again, that means you will have to go Slave Driver's Hands, and you have to figure out the poison on hit, the poison chance, you have to figure out the temp chance. So this is what I would consider the budget option. So yeah, Lightning Coil is great, but it basically requires you to run Slave Driver's Hands. Our gem links are as follows. We have Rejuvenating Totem linked to multiple totems, multiple traps, cluster traps, and Empower. So just like the totem itself, 2 totems instead of 1. The trap, more traps, even more traps, because trap damage or stuff like that doesn't fucking matter. And then Empower to boost up the life of our Rejuvenating Totem. We have Primal Manifestation Anointed for 30% increased totem life. The other 2 modifiers do not matter. Then in the Diadem we have the 4 auras that we run. Malevolence, Grace, Purity of Elements, and Herald of Agony. In the boots we just have Blink Arrow and faster attacks, which is not really needed because I kinda outrun the Blink Arrow. So if you look at this, if I shoot and
I'm not up to that
like
just yet.
I'm basically faster by just running. It doesn't really do much. Then here we have cast when damage taken Immortal Call increased duration. Again, because I had nothing better to do. We have a Flame Dash to get over walls and stuff. We have Cast on Death Portal, because again, I didn't know what to do here. Wither Totem setup doesn't work because we keep overwriting our totems, so we would delete our own Wither Totems all the time. And then in the chest we have a 6 link of Despair, Plague Bearer, and Withering Step, all 3 linked to Empower, Increased Area of Effect, and Enhance. Because Anomalous and Power is cursed enemies take 18% increased damage from damage over time effects with the Enhance. So we want to boost that as much as possible. Anomalous Withering Step inflicts Wither debuffs with Enhance, and Empower. This baby inflicts 10 Wither debuffs. Plague Bearer with level can store more Plague, therefore dealing more damage when you activate it. Plus with Enhance it gets more AoE. And then the increased area of effect is also nice for Withering Step, Despair, and Plague Bearer. As we are self-casting Despair, and with increased area of effect, you don't need to aim that good. Not that it really matters. The area is like fucking. You press pretty much anywhere, and the screen is cursed, as you see here. It's like it doesn't matter. Yeah, you can see how the AoE of Plague Bearer in the map showcase, and that's pretty much all. When it comes to budget, you don't have to go for the endgame bow, I don't think. I haven't tested this with a white bow. It's pretty much just the crucible tree itself, and then you can start playing and craft it up as you feel like it. So the cheap craft here would be to alt spam for damage over time multiplier, then regal into another suffix, or X-slam your way into another suffix, craft can't roll attack modifiers, slam for increased chaos damage over time and +1 socketed support gems, and then just craft either chaos damage over time multiplier or +2, which again +2 support gems is not needed if you don't go for empower. So yeah, you can craft this for pretty much one divine. Diadem, if you don't have it, you can just allocate Eldritch Battery and drop probably the Purity of Elements and fix your resistances. By other means, again, the strains on our gear are very minimal, so you can just do whatever. I'm way overcapped, as you see here, because also of the Taste of Fate. If we remove that, then I'm still like reasonably overcapped. I dropped a lot of resistances on other gear because, again, it doesn't really matter, and I wanted to get some Chaos Res in. Asenaths are dirt cheap, and you just have to get, like, with my setup and with a good quartz flask, you have to get like 20-something% chance to suppress spell damage between gloves, between boots and armor, which is fairly easy to do. And the rest is just whatever floats your boat. Rare chest is pretty good because flask and a charge every 3 seconds is nice. That's pretty much what allowed me to sustain all my flasks even in hideout. I think without that modifier, I don't sustain them. We will see here. Yeah, it's like... It's barely enough for Jade and Quartz. It's not just enough. It's not quite enough for Quicksilver. Taste of Fate is fine because these flasks don't need that many charges. With the chest, I also sustain my Quicksilver. So yeah, that's my version of Explody Totems. If you have any questions about the build or any comments or suggestions for future build guides / showcases, let me know. And now enjoy the map showcase and the bossing, both without commentary. I will see you in the next one. Bye!
exquisite rage only knows relief when I be healed and fight will not be so simple next time.
I've killed countless thousands.
Already know the winner. Struggle or strangle.
It's yours. If you...
Glorious words! Creation itself!
What's this? A real talent. You finally caught my attention.
Why run? What's the point? Glorious waves! Rain of stars! Wow, resist! Be utterly annihilated!
Strength. They became reliant.
Watch guilty crumble! Pointless! Fury of the cosmos! Be utterly annihilated! Why resist?
Warrant all this